We're to the end of module 1 of our Solo Meditation Essentials course. Well done. So we are going to quickly end by talking about messenger language. Okay, and this is all about streamlining what we've talked about so we can understand how to use it in a moment-to-moment basis. So, as always, let's just go back to the start and let's go through our learning so far. So, meditation is exercise for your focus. Focus is the ability of your brain to focus on the doing around us. We use the analogy of a torch. So we can use the sentence, it is the ability of that brain to shine on one thing at a time around us. That's what we think of as focus. We're not using the word multitasking anymore because it doesn't exist. We use task switching. So we switch from one task to another, even if it's in a millisecond. It might make us think that we're doing it at the same time, but we're not. We are task switching from one thing to the next. That's because the light of our focus is shining on one thing at a time, and we're switching it. We're doing the moving, even if it doesn't feel like it most of the time. Again, the fitter your focus is, the more you exercise your focus, the better that ability becomes. Then we talked about solo meditation. So if meditation is exercising your focus, and solo meditation is exercising your focus completely on your own without needing anything else, including timers, including guides, including apps. And then that led us into talking about stress. So we are no longer using the word stress. We are instead using the words distress and eustress. Now, something we didn't talk about specifically in that lesson is if you don't feel comfortable using those words to other people, that's okay. Most other people won't know what you mean when you say eustress, and they'll look at you maybe a bit strangely when you say distressed. It is empowering when you start practicing using them with other people because it gets them asking questions as well. But just go with whatever you're comfortable with. If you're not comfortable to use it around other people, then use it internally. Use it with yourself. If you say stressed, consciously know what you mean. Okay. If you say stressed in a conversation, consciously say to your, think to yourself, I mean distressed, or I actually mean eustressed. Just be really aware of what language you're using, why you're using it, and the definitions and the meanings and the images that come up. And again, that's all this module has been about, is getting really specific. And even though we've only covered a few things, you'll start to notice that it really helps you govern how you behave during the day, even if it's just in small micro moments to start with. So that's where we've gotten to. Now we're going to talk about really quickly this idea of messenger language, because you are a messaging system. You are consistently sending messages all the time. Most of them are unconscious. You are not aware of the messages that you're sending, but they're having a huge impact on your life, on your moment-to-moment experiences. Now that we know what distress and eustress are, and that we can keep coming back and unpacking that information, we can now understand that the messages that I'm sending are either messages of eustress or messages of distress. And this is why language is so important, and that's why we've started here in the Essentials training, because the language that I use sends a message to the brain. The brain then is able to use that message to decide what to do next. If I'm saying I'm stressed, I'm so stressed, I just don't want to, I don't want to have to deal with this stress anymore, the brain and the body is reacting to that in a very specific way. Whereas if I'm saying I'm distressed, straight away, you're putting yourself, you're mapping yourself, you're putting yourself in position to all these other things around you. So it might be I'm distressed, but you might know I'm not in a state of breakdown. I'm just I'm just on the other side of fatigue, or I'm just feeling a lot of fatigue at the moment. Already, you've put yourself in a position that actually gives you a bit of a guidance around what you do, what you need to do next. And your brain is going to respond very differently to that message. because ultimately, if you're using distress, you want to get to eustress. Eustress has now become our goal. Eustress has now become the point that we're always traveling to. We always want to return to eustress. We're always going to flip into states of distress. It's completely normal. But if I keep sending messages of distress to the brain, I'm only ever going to exist in states of distress. Language and the way we use language is a really effective way to start cleaning up those messages, to start introducing eustress messages to the brain. And all we need to do that is to click out the words that we've talked about and click in the words that we've learned. And we are going to talk about in module 2 other ways to send messages to the brain. We're going to talk about the heart. We're going to talk about breathing, because those two things send so many messages to the brain on a moment-to-moment basis. Coming back to language, you have 70 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And because we exist in states of distress on a normalized basis, most of those thoughts are distress fueled messages. Now that is crazy. That's insane. We are sending literally 70 to 80,000 messages to the brain that are putting us into states of distress. And that's a very broad number. We can break that number down into more specific groupings where we can understand, okay, so looping around these negative thoughts here, which then triggers off these negative thoughts. But at the moment, I don't really need to get into that. All we need to understand is that we have an incredible amount of thoughts every day. Most of them are thoughts of distress, which means that I'm consistently messaging my brain. I'm telling my brain that I'm in a state of distress. If I'm able to start sending messages of eustress to the body, then I'm starting to tell my body, my brain, that, okay, perhaps I'm feeling distressed, but I know where I want to get to. I want to get to eustress. And the body will start responding to that. It'll start putting things into action. We need to start working with our brains and our bodies. We need to start thinking of ourselves as messengers, and we need to start cleaning up the quality of the messages that we're sending. We know that we send messages to other people all the time, just in our body language, just in the language that we use with them. So let's start doing the same thing for ourselves. Let's start sending eustress messages to ourselves as much as we can. And let's notice the distress messages. Let's not shy away from them. Let's not try to suppress them, because they're there. We've gotten into the habit of sending them. And distress isn't a bad thing. It's there for a reason, but we don't want to exist in a state of distress. So notice the distress messages that you're sending. And that is what we're going to talk about in the next lesson, module 1, action. We're going to put things into place to help you understand, to help you identify what the different messages that you're sending are, and then what you can do in response to that. Because we don't want to react. Reaction is a symptom of distress. Response is a symptom of eustress. So let's start practicing those responses. I will see you in the next lesson, module 1, action, where we get to put all of this into play and we start to get changing our lives. Thank you as always, guys, for making it through this far. And I can't wait to hear your responses, to hear how you're feeling, and to go through to this next step of action with you. This is where the magic really is. We'll see you there.